Howdy, folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Reseller Niche podcast. I wanted to come out and talk a little bit about card grading, PSA's recent shutdown that they announced. I believe it was today that they're shutting down for several months, and kind of my overall opinion about grading and some comparisons I had with other companies in general. So I'm not someone that does a lot of card grading. I do probably buy more graded cards than I have ever had graded. I've done 2 submissions ever. My first ever submission was 2021. It was with CGC because PSA at that time was backed up or shut down, I believe. My second one was when PSA opened up, probably midway through 2022, I think, and that was with PSA. As someone that didn't grow up with card grading, the whole idea of card grading was a little bit beyond me. I didn't understand it, and frankly, I didn't really see the difference between the companies until I started looking at the costs of selling a PSA card versus back then it was CSG, now it's CGC, and back then I guess it would have been BGS and SGC, and I'm not sure if TAG was around back in 2021. But anyways, my point to that was I didn't really see the difference. I didn't really care. I didn't really understand grading at all. So a lot of the stuff I sent in was pretty bad. I sent in like a Ken Griffey Jr. Rated rookie. It came back like a CSG 2, I think. That was fun. But anyways, so my point to this is I had a lot of comparisons with what PSA/collectors is doing, and I wanted to kind of go back a little bit in history from what I've learned, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because I'm learning this. I'm pretty new to kind of being more in depth with card selling and collecting cards in general. I've been around them for years, but I never really took notice until the last, like a lot of people, the last, say 6 years, I'd say, give or take. Anyway, so my main comparison actually with PSA, when I think of PSA, I think of companies like Amazon. And so I should say collectors because, they're kind of synonymous. So when I think of Amazon, I think of somebody that wasn't the first, but they took a lot of market share and they just kind of went running with it. So like PSA, they didn't start the way that we all know about them now. They were originally, but before PSA was PCGS, I think it was called, the coin grading company that started in '86. A little bit after that, you had Collector's Universe. A little bit after that, I think in '91 or so, was PSA did their first grading for cards. And they were, very specific, obviously, at the beginning, just dealing with one type of thing. It's just like Amazon, very specific, just selling books online. So my point to that is they kind of had an initial starting point, but then they expanded from there. And, we're all kind of complaining about, or I shouldn't say we're all complaining, but a lot of people are complaining about, PSA submissions, the cost, the market share that they have. The word monopoly is thrown around a lot. So that's why I thought of Amazon, because Amazon wasn't the biggest, dog in the park right away. eBay was started around the same time, I think, mid-90s, 94, 95, something like that. But I want to say for the first 10, 15, 20 years, eBay was bigger and more synonymous with reselling. I sell a lot on eBay. They were a bigger, more interesting, funner company because they originally they had a lot more innovation than Amazon did at first. So I was just kind of going through some of the comparisons that I saw between PSA and Amazon. And I kind of see some comparisons with, and I know the first thing people are going to say is collectors came in and there was a giant windfall. They invested a lot of money, which companies like BGS and SGC and maybe other companies didn't have. So kind of feel like this is kind of that moment, kind of in the mid 2000s where Amazon seemed to off and eBay seemed to stagnate, and they kind of didn't implode, but they kind of stuck to increasing the price of seller fees rather than innovating and building a bigger company. So, like, for example, you got eBay, I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place here, but you got eBay acquiring companies early on. They acquired like PayPal, they acquired Skype, and I'm blanking on the name of the ticket company they had, StubHub, pretty early on. And so those are good acquisitions, which they've since gotten rid of. But then after that, they kind of stagnated. Amazon's done the same too. They've purchased a lot of companies. They purchased like Zappos. There was a company they bought that did kind of fulfillment, robotic equipment type stuff as well, that they bought earlier on to help their fulfillment centers. And there's been several other companies they've purchased too, either to stagnate or to basically buy out their competitors, or just to help their own companies, like growth. So I don't see that, and obviously I get it that SGC and CGC and maybe TAG don't have that bankroll to do that, that Collectors kind of provides to PSA. So I get that, but that's kind of the comparison I'm making. Like, it is something that I can see PSA growing even more. I kind of feel like this is kind of a beginning point. It's kind of, to be honest, there's another company that, Fanatics, that we could talk about, that haven't really got into the grading side of things, but they pretty much are probably the only people that can bankroll something that can compete with Collectors/PSA at this point. So, for example, though, what I was trying to get to is about 6-7 odd years ago, we had one of the last major shutdowns, or I don't know if they've had multiple shutdowns, but PSA shut down for a while. And a lot of people have been talking about, with today's announcement, didn't PSA learn anything from the last time? And in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, they did. And I kind of feel like the acquisition of SGC, the acquisition of BGS in the last, was it a little bit over a year, 2 years, was all build up for this. They could kind of foresee. I'm not saying that they wanted to have a backup, but that what they wanted, I feel like, is maximum capacity. You want to push, the goal of every company is to make maximum amount of money for the company, for your shareholders, etc. So maxing out capacity is not necessarily a bad thing. Now, obviously, they probably want to be able to grade, 10 million cards a month, but they can't do that right now. But maxing out capacity doesn't necessarily hurt them, because when I hear, okay, PSA is shutting down, I don't see anyone that's going to pick up that, the baton and just kind of run with it, because I believe there's another company that's also shut down recently. So I think it was, I could be wrong, I think it was TAG. But they've also they just don't have the capacity. So I think what's going to happen with this PSA shutdown is that it's going to be a good thing for PSA, no matter what people say. The backlogs are going to be cleared. All those people that they talked about hiring, ironically, before the shutdown, they're going to be allocated to, instead of, and I heard somebody else say this too, instead of taking care of pulling in submissions from the mail, they'll probably be allocated for grading or learning how to grade. People from SGC, people from BGS, which Collectors kind of has, access to, those are going to be people that are going to be grading things as well. And even if SGC and BGS pick up some of the slack, that is going to Collectors anyway. So, it's not like they're getting hurt by that. So all of this, I kind of feel like was, they could kind of see this coming. They could see, everything has ebbs and flows. There's ups and downs in the market. During the pandemic, it was kind of an anomaly, kind of what happened, I think they learned from that how to maximize their dollars. And they kind of said, if this is going to happen again, and they probably foresaw that it was, what are we going to do? And eliminate competition, maximize capacity, maximize the amount of money you can make based on what you have, your resources right now, which is exactly what they're going to do. People are going to complain. They're going to say, I don't want to wait, X amount of months. You're telling me that I have to pay $80 now for regular submissions. On the surface, people are going to say that. I really doubt that people are going to stop submitting. That's just the nature of the game. I'm not trying to big up PSA, but I'm just saying this is what's going to happen. I think that people will complain, they'll still do it. The price of PSA slabs, when they come back from this, they might have like a sale, we're no longer in a state where we can't take submissions. We're going to have a temporary sale for like 90 days. Then afterwards, that price of that value bulk price is going to go up. That yearly, collectors club price is going to go up. It's probably going to be like $200 a year. It's not $150 a year now. So all of those things are going to go up. Maybe not right away. I think maybe 90 days after it will go down for a little bit. Then it will go up. I guarantee it. Because if you look at all the prices, I was looking at the prices, the slow increase of prices, it won't go up like dramatically, but it will go up. It'll be $1 here, $1 there. So it's going to happen because people want them. So there's a couple reasons, that are pretty obvious. Number one, there is no pushback. There is very little that any company can do to take the place of PSA right now. They can't cover the submissions. People don't want other graded slabs as much as PSA slabs because of the amount that they're getting for them right now. Being completely honest. And me, again, I don't grade very much. I personally have not done a submission, like I said, since 2022. So I'm not a proponent of grading even, to be honest. So most of what I do is raw cards, and I do low-end cards, to be honest, less than $20. Most of my stuff is less than $20. Most of the graded stuff that I sell, I bought at a card show. Somebody else shelled out. Yeah, I buy PSA slabs, but I also buy other ones too. So anyway, just like Amazon expanded until they hit peak capacity, to where it didn't make sense to expand anymore. I think that's what PSA is going to do. Are they going to buy CGC and buy TAG and buy, other companies like right away? Probably not. They're at peak capacity, but they weren't at peak capacity last year or the year before. So they did have the time, they had the money to buy then, and they had the room to shift, to move, more importantly. So I think that another thing I was thinking actually is, I'm not sure if the American market really needs PSA or PSA really wants to purchase from the American market anymore. There's companies in Europe that are doing not as many cards as they do here, obviously not, but they are emerging. I think they're called ACE grading. There's PSA. I think it's MCA, GSA. There's a couple of them, and some of them do pretty substantial sales in like Germany, France, in the UK. I wouldn't be surprised if PSA's next purchase is in Europe, considering both CGC and PSA in the last year have got offices that they just built out in Europe. I think that is the next frontier. You got to think ahead. Why do they need to buy another American-based company when they can buy a European-based company? They can get into an emerging market. They can, maybe not, if I said ACE grading, to be honest, I had to look them. I don't really know anything about these companies, and it's not going to be as offensive if you see a newspaper article that says, PSA grading company purchased by PSA. To be honest, it'd be a pretty easy branding thing too. PSA, PCA. It sounds very similar to me. I don't think most Americans would notice the difference. No offense to any PCA fans out there. I'm just saying. So I don't think, my point today is I don't think PSA is looking to expand in the US. They're looking to expand in, it's either Europe or Asia. I don't know if Asia, I don't know anything about Asian grading companies, so maybe someone else can fill me in on that. But I'm sure there's companies there they could look at. So the whole point of this, what PSA is doing now, obviously is to make money, but at the same time is they want to be in a good market and a bad market. They want to be at the top of their game. They want to be synonymous, like Xerox is synonymous for photocopies. They want to be synonymous for card grading or memorabilia grading. So if you say Xerox, most people are going to understand what you're talking about. So if you say PSA, that's what they want. That's what they're looking for. And there's a couple of things that are pretty obvious. Like if I said Jeff Bezos or Nat Turner or even Michael Rubin, you probably know who I'm talking about. Now, can you name the CEO of eBay, BGS right now? I mean, you probably can look it up and find out. I had to. But these are all things that are strategically done. They are on the forefront of everything and they're thinking ahead. Again, I'm not trying to say that this is a great company doing great things. I'm just saying this is how big companies move. And this is the only company in the grading space that's moving this fast. So I guess my final thoughts on this kind of rambled opinion, again, coming from someone that doesn't really grade, I just kind of feel like it is. It's not really good or bad. Will they do it or won't they? I kind of think that these things are going to happen. So my final thoughts are this. Will we complain? And I complain too. I'm not saying don't complain. I complain all the time. Are we going to complain about the price of submissions? The length of time we have to wait for PSA submissions? Yeah, we're probably going to continue to do that. But we're probably still going to continue to. Whenever they open up, we're going to be the first ones in line. The next 3 days, I think there's 3 days before you can. They cut off those submissions. I guarantee you, they're going to have a huge influx. It's going to be, crazy. So another thing, will there be another PSA shutdown? Probably yes, I'm guessing. Again, I think it's not that the goal is to hit peak capacity to where they can't take in submissions, but I don't think it's really a bad thing for them that much. I think they can probably do this, take some time, figure out some things, streamline everything, and then get back to opening up. And it's kind of like, oh, look, it's like a store opening. It's like, oh, we're back open again, open for business. Come and submit your cards to us, and we'll happily do it. Will PSA buy another grade, or collectors buy another grading company? Probably. Like I said, I think it's probably in Europe or Asia. Can anything be done about any of these things? People throw around the word monopoly and that kind of stuff. Yes. But it's going to take someone like Michael Rubin or someone at that level, a company of that size like Fanatics to, do something. I know they have partnerships with CGC already. Fanatics does. So I don't know. Unless you want to start a grading company and you've got, 8-9 figures sitting in your back pocket that you want to throw around. I don't know. So those are my thoughts. I don't think this PSA's halt of submissions is going to be as bad as the last ones were, but at the same time, I don't think it's going to be the last time this happens, and I think we'll still be complaining about this in a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. So those are my thoughts. Reseller Niche out, and you guys have a good one. Bye.